If you've been dreaming about writing your novel, then this is your sign. My Notes to Novel course is officially open for enrollment, but only until August 28th. Notes to Novel is an 8-week live coaching program where I'll walk you through my proven step-by-step system to write a novel that agents request and readers devour. You'll get 8 weeks of live Q&A calls with me, personal feedback on your story's foundational elements, and accountability to keep you on track. Doors close soon, so don't wait. Head to savannahgilbo.com/yes to join us before August 28th. One more time, that's savannahgilbo.com/yes. I know you've got a story inside of you, so let me help you bring it to life. I hope to see you inside the course. She didn't just fix one of these elements in her story. She learned how to develop them and how to weave all of these pieces together. So she created characters with depth, she raised stakes that mattered, and she structured her story to deliver maximum emotional impact. And she went from rejection to having a completely revised manuscript in 6 months. And now she's back querying literary agents, receiving requests, and much better feedback. Welcome to the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast. My name is Savannah Gilbo, and I'm here to help you write a story that works. I want to prove to you that writing a novel doesn't have to be overwhelming. So each week, I'll bring you a brand new episode with simple, actionable, and step-by-step strategies that you can implement in your writing right away. So whether you're brand new to writing or more of a seasoned author looking to improve your craft, this podcast is for you. So pick up a pen and let's get started. Have you ever wondered why some manuscripts get rejected even when the writing is absolutely stunning? I see it happen all the time. Gorgeous prose, lyrical descriptions, sentences that could make you cry, and yet these manuscripts still don't work. And you might be surprised to hear that as a book coach and a developmental editor, I can usually spot a manuscript that's going to struggle within the first 5 pages, sometimes even within the first paragraph. And the thing is, it's rarely because the writing is bad. In fact, some of the most heartbreaking rejections I see are the ones with beautiful prose. But the truth is, beautiful writing attached to a story that goes nowhere is like a gorgeous frame around a blank canvas. It doesn't matter how pretty the frame is if there's no picture inside, right? So let me share a quick story about one of my students, Amanda. Amanda had spent 3 years perfecting every sentence in her manuscript. She worked with a copy editor who polished up her spelling and grammar. Her beta readers raved about her quote-unquote stunning prose and lyrical voice. And when she went out querying, she was certain that agents would love her manuscript. But then fast forward to a few months later, she was met with complete silence and didn't get one request for more pages. And this is when I met Amanda. And what we did is we sat down together, we took a look at her manuscript, and right away the issue was super clear to me. So yes, her writing was very beautiful, but there was nothing happening in her pages. Her characters weren't changing, there was no conflict, there were no stakes, no tension. She had a bunch of pretty words and pretty sentences describing people having conversations or going about their everyday life. And after rebuilding her manuscript from the ground up in my Notes to Novel course, Amanda finally understood the difference. Agents and readers don't fall in love with beautiful words. They fall in love with compelling stories. Okay, now I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, of course a novel needs interesting characters and real stakes. That's writing 101, isn't it? And yes, on the surface, these things do seem obvious. But what I've noticed after working with hundreds of writers is that knowing something intellectually and actually executing it in your manuscript are two completely different things. It's kind of like knowing you need flour, eggs, and sugar to bake a cake versus actually combining them in the right proportions and baking it properly. If you've ever tried to bake a cake, then you probably know what I mean. The knowledge alone isn't enough. It's the execution that really matters. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about what agents and readers really want, aka how to write a novel that stands out. And I'm going to share with you what Amanda learned that changed everything, because it all really boils down to 5 essential elements. And these are the things that agents and readers are actually looking for, the things that make them fall in love with your story and keep turning the pages. All right, so I'm going to break them down in today's episode, and let's dive right in, starting with key element number 1. First up, and this is non-negotiable, you need a character that readers actually care about. Now, I know you might be thinking, of course I need a good character, but here's where many writers go wrong. They think that likable or good equals perfect. And that's not what agents and readers want at all. Agents and readers don't need to love your protagonist, but they do need to care what happens to them. So how do you create that? Well, you do it by making your character feel real, flawed, and deeply human. You make them someone who wants something desperately, and here's the key, whose want matters to us because we understand it on a gut level. As an example, take Evelyn Hugo from The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She isn't always likable. Sometimes she's manipulative, sometimes she's selfish, and she's definitely willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead. But we care about her because underneath all of that, she is deeply human. She's spent her entire life being defined by others, mainly by men, by Hollywood, and the media. And her desperate need to finally control her own narrative, well, we get that, right? We've all felt powerless at some point or another, and we've all probably wanted to scream, "That's just not who I really am," right? So do you see the difference? It's not about making your character nice. It's about making their deepest desires something we recognize in ourselves. And without this emotional connection, even the most action-packed and exciting plot will feel hollow. That's because readers don't just want to watch things happen, they want to feel invested in who it's happening to. Which brings us to key element number 2, and that is stakes that actually matter. And what I mean by this is that your protagonist needs to pursue something difficult, something with real consequences if they fail. But here's what trips up so many writers. They create external stakes without connecting them to internal stakes. Let me explain what I mean. So something like the world will end is definitely something at stake, right? But unless we understand what that means to your specific character on a personal level, then it's just noise. The stakes that really matter are the ones that are tied directly to your character's emotional journey. If you take something like Where the Crawdads Sing, for an example, the surface stakes are very clear. Kaya could be convicted of murder. She could lose her freedom or even her life. But there are also deeper stakes at play too, right? And these are probably the ones that make us stay up late turning the pages. And these stakes are about her very identity. So if she's forced to conform to society's rules, she's going to lose who she is. If she opens her heart again, she's going to risk the abandonment that nearly destroyed her as a child. And those are stakes we feel in our bones, right? Because we've all feared losing ourselves or being hurt. So when you're creating the stakes for your story, ask, what does my character stand to lose emotionally? What fear will they have to face? What part of themselves might they have to sacrifice to get what they want? All right, so that is key element number 2, stakes that actually matter. Now, key element number 3 is conflict that tests your character. So once you've established what your character stands to lose, you need conflict or obstacles that do more than just get in their way. Ideally, every piece of conflict in your story should force your character to make hard choices that reveal who they really are or that push them to grow and change. Think about the conflict or the obstacles in your story as tests that are designed to crack your character open and show us what's really inside. As an example, take something like the Hunger Games, right? The arena is full of obstacles. There are other tributes, the game maker's traps, starvation, injury, just to name a few. But Suzanne Collins doesn't just use these challenges or these obstacles just to create action. Each one of them forces Katniss to choose between her survival instinct and her humanity. When Rue is dying, Katniss could walk away, right? That's one less competitor. But instead, she sings to her and comforts her as she dies. When Peeta is injured, she could leave him because he's slowing her down, right? But instead, she risks everything to save him. So each obstacle or each bit of conflict in the story peels back another layer of Katniss's "I'm just trying to survive" armor and reveals the protector underneath. All right, so that's the key. The conflict, the obstacles, the challenges in your story, they aren't just problems to solve. They're opportunities for your character to discover or reveal who they truly are when everything is on the line. All right, so that is key element number 3, conflict that tests character. Key element number 4 is an emotional journey that's appropriate for your genre. Now, this one's important because readers pick up books expecting to feel certain things based on the genre. Romance readers want the butterflies, the tension, and all the swoony feelings. Thriller readers want their hearts racing, and fantasy readers want that sense of wonder and escape, right? But here's the trick. You need to deliver those expected emotions in new and innovative and unexpected ways. If you look at something like Beach Read by Emily Henry, it's a contemporary romance, so we expect the attraction, we expect the banter and things like that, right? But the author doesn't stop there. She makes us feel January's grief over her father's death, her creative paralysis, and her sense of betrayal. We feel her walls coming down bit by bit as the story unfolds. And the romance works because it's woven into this deeper emotional journey of healing and rediscovering who she is as a writer. So the key to this element is layering. So yes, we want to give readers what emotions they came for, but we want to surprise them with the depth they didn't expect. So make them feel things they didn't know they needed to feel. And this emotional complexity is what can really transform a good story into an unforgettable one. Okay, so that is key element number 4, an emotional journey that fits your genre. Key element number 5 is a resolution that satisfies, even if it doesn't make us happy. Now, your ending needs to do 2 things. It needs to resolve the external plot and complete your character's internal journey. If you miss either one of these things, then readers will just want to throw your book across the room. But here's what confuses many writers. A satisfying ending doesn't necessarily mean a happy one. It means the ending feels inevitable, like this is the only way your story could have ended while still surprising us at the same time. Think of something like The Great Gatsby, right? Jay Gatsby's death is tragic, but it completes his arc. He lived in this illusion and he died for it. And the ending delivers on everything the story promised, even if it breaks our hearts. So a great ending ties together every thread, character desires, the stakes, the obstacles, and the emotional journey into a moment that feels both surprising and like it couldn't have happened any other way. All right, so that is key element number 5, a resolution that satisfies even if it doesn't make us happy. So just to recap, we need characters we care about. We need stakes that matter. We need conflict that challenges and transforms your characters. We need a genre-appropriate emotional journey and a satisfying resolution. If you miss even one of these things, then your beautiful prose is not going to save you. Now, I know you might be thinking, okay, this is great. I understand this, but how do I actually do this in my story? Well, that is the right question to ask, because knowing these elements and knowing how to weave them into your specific story are 2 different skills entirely. Now, I want to take you back to the writer Amanda that I mentioned earlier. After going through my Notes to Novel course, she didn't just fix one of these elements in her story. She learned how to develop them and how to weave all of these pieces together. So she created characters with depth, she raised stakes that mattered, and she structured her story to deliver maximum emotional impact. And she went from rejection to having a completely revised manuscript in 6 months. And now she's back querying literary agents, receiving requests, and much better feedback. None of this happened because she suddenly became a better line-by-line writer. She was always very talented at that piece of the puzzle. What Amanda really needed was just to understand how to channel all that talent into a story that works. And this is exactly what I teach in Notes to Novel. I teach you how to develop your story holistically so every element works together to create a novel that agents request and readers devour. Because a great story doesn't just happen by accident, it happens by design. So if you're listening to this and you're tired of polishing sentences while your story goes nowhere, if you have a manuscript full of beautiful prose but it has no forward momentum, and if you're ready to finally write a story that agents request and readers love, then Notes to Novel is exactly what you need. And at the time this episode goes live, Notes to Novel is currently open for enrollment. So head over to savannahgilbo.com/yes right now to learn more and to enroll. Because your story deserves to be more than just pretty words on a page. It deserves to be finished and it deserves to be read. And I would be so honored to help you write it. So one more time, that's savannahgilbo.com/yes to join us inside Notes to Novel and to finally finish your book. All right, so that's it for this episode of the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast. Head over to savannahgilbo.com/podcast for the complete show notes, including the resources I mentioned today, as well as bonus materials to help you implement what you've learned. And if you're ready to get more personalized guidance for your specific writing stage, whether you're just starting out, stuck somewhere in the middle of a draft, drowning in revisions, or getting ready to publish, take my free 30-second quiz at savannahgilbo.com/quiz. You'll get a customized podcast playlist that'll meet you right where you're at and help you get to your next big milestone. Last but not least, make sure to follow this podcast in your podcast player of choice, because I'll be back next week with another episode full of actionable tips, tools, and strategies to help you become a better writer. Until then, happy writing.